Fighting this timeline with snark. Every slow welcome, but no recorders. Baptized by laughter in the dark. We stand tall, scorning fake orders. In the church of glory rise, with chaos and shenanigans bright. Chocolate and sarcasm our rise. Together we light up the night.
Hey, you guys, it's Mo, and I figured, because God has the greatest sense of humor and made me a juror for this year, because nothing could go wrong with that, y'all. Not one damn thing could go wrong with me getting jury duty after spending a great part of, the last 2 years really finding that trials are great. So I have a bunch of stuff to tell you guys. But first, can I tell you how absolutely uber nerdness I went? Just uber nerdness. Thank you, Alice G, for popping by, and I hope you too have a great afternoon. Thank you, Wolfram, for doing all of your mod stuff. Welcome, Nanny Goat, and Audio Coffee, and Heidi. Welcome, welcome. So, the first thing that you do is you go through, obviously, a metal detector. I do live in the county seat of my particular county. So I did not have to drive very far, though I do get 49 cents a mile for every mile that I drove. So I will be the proud owner of, I think $4 for my drive. Welcome, Linda Linney. So I guess I just kind of wanted to demystify the jury duty kind of thing, because I will tell you, I had maybe the benefit of knowing court stuff. It is a bit intimidating. I am not going to lie to you. When they start asking you pointed questions and you're in the middle of, an actual factual courtroom, I did get a little bit of the shaky hands. But let's give you the full experience because, oh my God, you guys, we had an informative video. And I have realized that I have gotten so used to on YouTube just during during videos or different things, kind of having little asides to say. It was incredibly weird to not be able to talk and say, oh my God, this is killing me with cringe. Or do I look stupid? I mean, I understand that you might think with my hair I'm awesome, but I'm not buying this. So we get into the room, we get all of our numbers. I was number 14. That should have been a sign to me that they were never going to let me go. I didn't realize because they had numbers all the way up to like 45. So I was thinking, okay, I'm going to tell them I have children I have to pick up and they are going to let me go. Not to mention that someone is probably going to ask me, what do you mean when you say you're a YouTuber that follows court proceedings? So everyone was really, really sweet. But it was, so they showed this video. Not only did they not download it, you can get it on YouTube, okay? They didn't download it, so it kept buffering at about 4 minutes, and we were just sat in there, with the wheel of buffering death listening to this. But this has to be the cheesiest, most corny thing, and I want to roast the ever-living hell out of it. Not the people, just Troy McClure, and I think you're going to get it. This is pretty bad. I'm telling you, when I say Troy McClure, I mean in full Simpsons, like disgraced actor that got a DUI allegedly. I don't know. This actor probably didn't get a DUI, but it's like Gordon Bombay had to do public service stuff, and they didn't have a hockey team for him. Okay, that's kind of how this kind of felt. So let's get into the video. I have it popped up. We are probably not going to watch the entire thing because that was just pure torture. To me. I'm pretty sure it's against several conventions in the Geneva Convention, but I do have the closed caption on because, boy, you guys don't want to miss this 20-minute after school special. Look, they've got graphics.
On behalf of the Indiana court system and the judge, attorneys, and parties, thank you for answering the
And I so wanted to pause it here to say, she's a smart person. She has books behind her. Trust her. Y'all, I had 15 pages of notes. I am not going to lie. It was note taking for my sanity because some of this stuff gets so boring and I don't have the outlet of, popping off at the mouth while I'm on stream. So before we even get selected, we get to watch this infotainment, if you will.
during the call for jury service today. Every case that's presented to a jury is incredibly important to all of the people involved in it, and they're trusting their case to the fair, impartial judgment of people from their own community, all of you. We know jury service is rarely easy or convenient,
Hello,
but our system of justice can't work without people like you, and we are grateful for all of you. As you begin the jury selection process,
this doesn't at all look like a hostage video. She's like, I'm reading the lines. Ma'am, blink if you need help. I can only imagine I'm ever going to get invited back to jury duty should this stream come out. And for that, I say, thank you, God. I'm just kidding. All joking aside, and to be very honest and clear with you guys, I did not sleep well Tuesday night. I think that watching trials and really, getting into cases has really given me it really gave me pause because, regardless of the silliness of the case, and we'll get to that, before I knew what the case was about, I knew how much responsibility juries have. I realized that, the way I listen to this information, the way I take it in, and the way I think could possibly take someone's freedom away. And that really, really, made it hard to sleep because, I think most people, if you get jury duty, not dirty, having a Biden moment here. When you get jury duty, and I think maybe you haven't been involved in cases, you kind of see it as an inconvenience. But I really went in knowing that if I get selected, I have someone's future in my hands. And regardless of how I feel, I have to look at all the facts in the case. And I might have to, take away someone's freedom. And that was a really monumental thing to me. Mr. Mo's like, just, it'll be fine. I trust your judgment, except for your wig buying, it'll be great. So I walk in there and I'm wearing a nice dress. I have my little tag, my 14 tag on my right boob. No, this is my left boob. I was a left boober. So I just put it on my, since they don't want to know your names. And I kept, as number 14, y'all, I was picked like doggone first. And I was like, I would like to lodge a complaint with Star Command. I had relied comfortably on me knowing too much about jury stuff to get me kicked out. Which, I mean, it is a bit of a cop-out. I am not going to lie. I was not looking forward to jury duty simply because that is such an awesome responsibility. And I really felt the weight of that. So we're in this room. We have to watch this infotainment.
I hope the short video helps you feel more knowledgeable about our justice system and prepares you for this.
Skip forward to Troy McClure because, oh my God, Troy McClure.
After a hard day at work, you come home, you stroll to the mailbox, minding your own business. You reach in to get the Daily Mail when you discover, that's right, a jury summons. I don't think.
Well, hell, y'all, if I got a jury summons out of an envelope, that some creepy person just put in my mailbox, I would be very upset. But holy God, this man had a drunk driving stick and he had to do some sort of acting. I refuse to believe that this actor was like, sweetie, guess what? What? And his wife's all excited, like, what, Troy McClure? And he said, I got a part. And she's like, how? And he said, "I'm going to be on a jury duty infotainment video." And she's like, "You took the job?" He's like, "Yeah, well, it also clears my record, so, I'm just kidding. Allegedly, this is all speculation and making fun of people." So I seriously doubt that he is not a real actor, but there you go. Troy McClure, everyone, from such great movies as Why Do I Need to Go to the Dentist? And What Does Legal Immunity Have to Do with Me? I just thought he was just gonna say that.
I think the Indiana court system doesn't know how some of you might feel about being called to jury service. Now, there may be a handful of you who look forward to jury duty, like a root canal, or your 2-hour aerobic exercise instruction, or some endless flight delay.
You guys,
Yes?
I was internally laughing my ever-loving tits off. I could not deal with this. I was like, what in the 1980s, after school special, very special episode. I will have to do this because so I am in this jury area, this courtroom, trying to look, professional while I am internally dying inside at the unintentional cringe hilariousness of this video.
Yes. Jury service does interrupt our daily routines. Still,
Early 90s.
you're making an important contribution by being here today. As a member of a jury, you're one of the most important parts of the Indiana justice system, and you're helping to ensure the constitutional rights guaranteed to all Hoosiers.
I know it was.
Not a bad privilege, huh?
I was having an existential crisis. I really was. I was like, what can I do if I can't comment at this cringe hilarity? I was like, I endeavor to put this video on YouTube and I will roast the ever living hell out of it, because if I had to sit through it and not make jokes, I get to make jokes this time. Yeah, this is like, Freddie and the fire ant, No, I did not get dismissed. I was actually made a four person. They changed the name. I was gonna put like, for boobage. I thought, the cleavage in chief, but apparently I was not allowed to make my own name, which I found very upsetting.
And hey, now that you're here, you might as well join in and help make a difference.
I was internally
The process is
laughing.
actually pretty interesting. Today, you're going to hear evidence as it's presented in court and make important decisions that affect human lives. Listen to what some Hoosier citizens just like you have experienced during their jury service.
Now, before you look at real live Hoosiers in their natural habitat, I would like to tell you that in the Midwest, trends don't get here as quickly, and Dolly, I was asking myself this shit the entire day. Because I'll get to it, because I made it very clear that I was fairly intimately aware of how the jury system and how the justice system works. I didn't say, I mean, I didn't come right out and say I was a YouTuber because the grift is bad with me. I could have had a captive audience of 50. I don't know what I was thinking. But I would just like to say, before you see Hoosiers in our natural after-school special environment, trends don't quite get here. So I will say this was before any selection came in. This was right after we all got checked off that we wouldn't get a warrant issued for us because we did show up. So this was prior to anyone talking to us. We were just left in a room to watch this video, and I was trying to be professional-ish. Yes, Wolfram, the trial was only, I would say, 4 hours of the entire experience. I would not be posting anything if the trial was ongoing. That would be totally against the rules. I do take this seriously. As much as I joke, it was a small case. Not a small case for the people involved, but it wasn't a long or involved case. So, yeah, I did start this whole thing by telling you guys that I didn't sleep well, Tuesday night, because I understood, what kind of power a jury holds, especially watching cases. Now, I will tell you that this video tickled me, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. Because look, I'm just saying Indiana trends don't find their way here very often.
When I told my friends, it was like their reaction was, "Oh no, you're in for it now," you know. But I was pleasantly surprised. I wanted to be a part of it.
I decided, well, yes, I can do this, and decided that I would give, my best shot as far as doing my best job.
I will say, as much as I'm joking about, the jury duty, in this video, they did actually break things down. So, Troy McClure took off his, y'all have, I nearly busted out at this part. So,
Well,
Troy
we
McClure
certainly
has taken
understand
off
the
his
importance of
sports
what you're doing here today and why you're doing it. So what's next? What can you expect from your role as a potential juror in the Indiana court system?
The director is like, yeah, look casual, look more casual, take your sports jacket off, just look all. And he's like, so you just want me to lean against the pillar? And he's like, yeah, no, you look totally casual, go with it. You don't look like you're having painful sciatica.
Let's find out. You and a large group of fellow Hoosiers have been randomly selected to serve as potential jurors. You may have already been asked, or you soon will be asked, to fill out a questionnaire to help the court match the circumstances of each case to the most qualified.
Y'all, I figured when I filled out the questionnaire, because you do fill out a questionnaire, it kind of just asks you, are there any maybe things that would be potentially hazardous, to you, or a hardship for doing the trial. And I, said I'm a primary transportation for my kids. I have a very short, we did. I'm trying to get to the part where, because I do have a blackboard, pretty much. Because when people asked, so what do you do when we finally got into the jury room? I'm like, well, I watch trials and make fun of people on the internet. And they're like, yeah, I could see that. But I was honest about my employment, such as it is. I put semi-professional YouTube commentator with focuses on criminal justice, trial watching, and newsy news. Because I figured as soon as I put trial commentary, I would not be hearing back. But I got a summons for 9/11, which can we all just take a federal holiday? I mean, look, not to get super off topic or off tangent, but could we make it a federal holiday on 9/11? It's been 20 years. Could we just do that? So, actually, that was one of the weird things, Dolly. So I was fully in thinking that we would not be able to talk about the case until deliberation. But every time that we were given the instruction to go back to the jury room for, different things, like a sidebar, or maybe they needed to talk about something, they told us that we could discuss the case. We could not deliberate, but we could discuss our impressions, our present sense, impressions of what was going on in the case. And I was really very intrigued by that, because every other case that I've heard, it's like, look, you cannot talk about this case. We were admonished or advised that we could only talk about the case if all of us were present. And, it was weird. It was a deviation from anything I'd ever heard of before. I was involved in a criminal case and not a civil case. And I'll kind of get, it was a criminal case. I'll kind of get into where I was laying hints that I understood the legal system to a large degree. But yes, I did fill out a questionnaire, and I figured
by jurors for
I
that
would
case.
be out.
This questionnaire explores important information about your background. It's simply a way that the court and the lawyers can better understand the facts or
my inner Dale Gribble says that they keep this in a database, and I am on a list. Okay. I don't trust anyone in the government that says, no, we're just taking this information for research purposes. We are not putting you on a list. I have a little too much Dale Gribble in me to believe that one.
Or personal experiences that might influence your opinions about a particular case. The judge and attorneys always respect the private nature of such questionnaires. You can be assured that your answers are intended to be used for the purpose.
I said, you guys, I watch trials for a living, in theory, semi-professionally. And you are not allowed to talk about it, but this might be a different thing for Indiana. No, he's not, but add a beard and he could be. Welcome, Jedi Jess. Jedi Jess, I actually had something interesting to tell you. So this is only my experience in my courtroom in the trial I presided over, which is weird because I didn't preside over anything. I was on the jury. But to use a turn of phrase, every time the jury was dismissed to go back into the jury room, and God bless whoever made comfy seats for that jury area, because the regular masses seat have lost their cushion from asses past. I mean, it was like sitting on cardboard. My leg is killing me today. But tangenty, yes. When we were left to go to the jury room, even before anyone had rested, say they needed to do a sidebar or a longer thing, we were allowed to discuss the case as long as we didn't deliberate. No, actually, the bailiff and the court staff were really. I know, Fundian. It kind of went against my internal, like, I don't think you're lawing right. No, but we had cookies, Pringles, and crackers, and the bailiff was really so very sweet, getting us waters and snacks and stuff. But that was just a different procedural thing than I've ever seen in any court case. Now, I've only been involved in jury duty once. I'm pretty sure they're never going to invite me back. So I don't know if that's normal. I'll have to get in touch with other Indiana people, but that was something very different. No, honestly, I was just hoping at the end of the day, because it was getting around to 6:30 when they were working on verdict instructions. I was like, oh, for the love of God, if you make me come in here tomorrow to deal with closing statements, I will lose my ever living poo with everyone. It was really weird, Jedi Jess. I mean, I double checked with the bailiff because it just didn't seem right. And she said, yeah, no, that's what they said. You can do that. So we did discuss the case. We discussed evidence. I took 15 pages of notes because I am too type A to function, and it also keeps me on task. So if you guys ever see me just like writing things down, I am paying attention. Just the act of writing down notes seems to help me actually stay focused if I do want to wander. I have learned that about myself. So I take copious notes. It's just what it is. Welcome, Rosalind. Thank you for lurking.
The purposes of this case and for this case only.
You guys, I nearly laughed. I nearly snorted at that part, because let's go back. He's like, your information is safe with us, the government. But to illustrate that, put it in your sports jacket. Apparently it was a little nipply inside, because he put his sports jacket back on. He's no longer leisurely.
The private nature of such questionnaires, you can be assured that your answers are intended to be used for the purposes of this case and for this case only.
And Diane, that's exactly what I expected. He says, when I did jury duty, we were instructed not to talk to each other about the case, and we couldn't even take our notes in until we started deliberation. Yeah, it really threw me off. I was really kind of confused. But I will say, so if I had never seen
Will
a
begin by
trial,
administering an oath to you and other potential jurors
this
that
does
simply
explain.
affirms your willingness to tell the truth. Then the judge and attorneys will begin to ask you and the other prospective jurors a series of questions. Lawyers call this part of the trial either voir dire or voir dire, which
Okay.
means to speak.
Now, Indiana, come on now. We already have the Midwestern accent. You didn't just say voir dire. It's voir dire. Come on, let's let us sound just a little bit educated. But it really does, as much as I make fun of the cheesy video, and it is full of the ham and cheese, it does really explain some of the, kind of things that maybe you wouldn't understand or you wouldn't think about or know about if you weren't a trial nerd.
Better, particularly if you're chosen to decide the case. During this questioning, you will also have the opportunity to communicate openly with the attorneys and the court. Remember, the goal here is to create a fair and impartial jury. If you feel as though...
I love how they're like, be sincere. I've taken my glasses off. Do you feel more bonded to me as a fellow human? Rest assured that jury duty does not suck balls. I just love how it was like fake sincerity. But I will tell you, so the only question that was not asked when I was one of the first people, one of the first groups in the jury box was, oh, do you have any hardships that would make it hard for you to do this trial? Because I was going to raise my hand and say I have to get my kids. But since they didn't ask, and I'd already talked to Mr. Moe about, him most likely having to get the kids because of this jury duty going on, I wasn't salty. I didn't, raise my hand after I was seated. I just was like, okay, fine. I will do the trial. Now, what I will say about what I will say about the voir dire is it is incredible to me how many people miss the meaning of what a question is trying to get at. Maybe what a lawyer was trying to say. We had I believe two assistant district attorneys, one male, one female, and then the defendant had two female attorneys. And maybe it's because I know a little bit more about trials. I could kind of see what they were looking for. The state was, talking about recklessness and, what does it mean to act with recklessness? What does intimidation mean? Asking if we were uncomfortable with firearms. What did we know about hunting? Now, I will tell you guys, in the greatest hilarity ever concocted 2024, you got me. This case was about a deer, a couple dumbasses, and a creepy clown. I shit you not, you are my favorite turds. I am not shocked anymore. I am not shocked. I go away for one day and we have Swedish, Soylent Green people smoothies and attack otters. I don't know what is going on in this timeline. So now when I was in voir dire, when I was sitting there, that thing that you do, or maybe it was just assault otters? Or Swedish Soylent people smoothies. Oh my, I give up. I give up. I have no idea. You guys, 2024 is not waiting for the October surprise. This entire year has been an October surprise. So it was interesting to actually have the lawyers come up and, ask us questions. I'll go here. So I'm talking about voir dire. So I'm sitting in my nice comfy juror chair thinking, as soon as they look at my questionnaire, because y'all, I'm in a binder. I was geeking out big time. They were bringing in another table for like discovery, and I was like, holy shit, we're getting a table of discovery. The weirdest things make me happy. But, so you're sitting in this seat, or at least I was, and, I'm 14, and, uh, they were talking about, "So how do you feel about firearms and recklessness?" And you know that thing in trigonometry class that maybe only I did or that toddlers do? When you start asking them questions and maybe they were eating cookies when they weren't supposed to? Not that I know anything about that. But you know how if you don't make eye contact or if a toddler's not making eye contact, they can kind of pretend that you don't exist? Uh, I am glad that mine was a bit, absurd, but not terrible. So, the state's attorney first, the male state's attorney, who I have blissfully forgotten his name, but he did look a little bit like, the dad off of the first Beetlejuice, if that gives you any indication of where my mind was. He said, "Oh, number 14, you look like you have something to say about recklessness." And I was like, "Not really." And he's like, what is recklessness to you?" And so I said, well, recklessness would be someone acting with disregard to what a normal, reasonable person would do in everyday life. However, if we're talking about recklessness with a firearm, there are different standards and things that you need to be able to prove in order to get to a recklessness state. Uh, and he's like, "That was the best answer I've ever heard." And I was like, "Oh, crap. You guys like me." "No, I'm trying to give you hints that I know way too much about trials. I'm not trying to no, I'm trying to go home, damn it." Y'all, they took my cell phone. I thought for sure if not anything else, I could try to learn how to edit videos on my phone because I've heard it's easier to use Apple Video. So I was gonna work on that and maybe read all of my Smexy books that, I figured I'd have some time to read. They took my doggone cell phone. I had to sit there and look at these okay, someone has a painting hobby in the courtroom. Someone has a painting hobby in the courtroom, and they attempted to do a collie. Now, the collie somewhat looked like it was a mix between a jackalope, a chupacabra, and some other animal. It was like it was done by AI that only had the vaguest clue of what a dog was, and it was terrifying because the dog kept just looking at you from the picture, and it only vaguely looked like a dog-ish. But back to the story. So, you know, first the state goes and they kind of give you maybe a couple of questions, and the questions that I was getting from the state seemed to indicate that this this criminal case, was going to involve firearms, hunting, and reckless use of a firearm. So I kind of got, okay, all right, that kind of makes sense because you don't have, you know, any of the charging documents or anything in voir dire. They are just trying to figure out, okay, do you have a disrespect for the state? Can you be impartial? Have you ever had any, bad experiences with the court or know people from the witness list? So then the defense attorney comes up, and the defense attorney has what I would like to call resting mo face. And I will get to it as we get into the trial and sort of the details. But resting mo face is where you cannot physically hide your reaction to stupidity on your face. Your mouth will say nothing. Your face will be like, so she had what I like to call resting mo face. Coin term, it is, I will trademark it soon. And she came up and she said, "Well, what do you think reasonable doubt is?" And everyone was kind of answering, and it was really interesting to see how people responded to the defense attorney asking, "How would you feel if I just sat here? Because right now, my client is presumed innocent. So I could simply sit here and do nothing. You know, what would you feel if I did that?" And a lot of people were really, really, kind of confused by this. They said, "Well, I would assume that you should, prove that he's innocent." And, the defense attorney really had to tell people, "No, no, he is presumed innocent. You don't have to, give evidence to show that he, is evidence. You don't have to clear him, the whole part of it." So she asked me, "Well, what do you feel about that?" And I said, "Well, considering that the state is the one that brings the charges and they are the one with the burden of proof, reasonable doubt means that, you can take pieces of circumstantial evidence, you can take pieces of testimony, and a normal functioning human would say it is yes, beyond a reasonable doubt, is what a normal people using all the context clues and all the clues given in the case, what they would think would be reasonable or not." I mean, and she did go over what the burden of proof was. If you think he might be guilty, if you think he may be guilty, if you think it's probable that he's guilty, that means he is innocent and the state hasn't proven its case. And I thought it was really good the way that she kind of broke that down and explained it, because it is a hard concept to sort of wrap your head around when you first get into trials. Okay, wait, so the defense doesn't have to prove anything. It's the state's burden of proof. And I think we say those things like it's the state's burden, but until you really start looking at trials and looking at things, you don't get that sort of mindset. So she came up and she said, "Well, what does recklessness mean to you?" And I am still attempting to out myself as a jury knowledgeable person, okay? Because I am thinking that at every point where they go up to strike people, my number is going to be on, and I'm going to haul ass to Culver's and get some ice cream before I have to share it with my children. I'm a terrible mother. I am sorry, but I was like, I'm getting some ice cream after this. I'll be darned if I don't get ice cream after this. So I told her, I said, "Well, it depends on what kind of case this is. If it's a civil case, then the pro- the preponderance of the evidence, I believe, only has to be 51%. Now, for it being a criminal case, you have to have beyond a reasonable doubt, which means that any sort of things that lie on either side or are a toss up, you need to give the benefit of the doubt to the defendant. You need to be able to. I was like, I have no problem with you doing nothing. The state's burden is to, to prove that he did these things. And yours is to, press the state for its, burden and to make sure that his constitutional rights are being taken care of. And I think I have outed myself because I'm like, I have told you the difference between civil cases and criminal cases. I have used, in a normal course of everyday events, what a reasonable person. I mean, I am stealing phrases directly from jury instructions to kind of again say, I probably shouldn't be here. I know too much. But I made it through, y'all. So this is around, I think, 10:30, 11. We finally get done with the voir dire and the jury selection, and we are sent back and then out to lunch because I believe I got a bev, which was awesome. But we start getting into this case, and this case is absolutely redamdiculous. So let's get into the case because y'all, I can't even. So this is a case of a deer, some dumbasses, and a scary clown. I shit you not, people. This is the actual case that I was given because God already thinks God thinks that it's hilarious to put me in contact with deer, even tangentially. So the case that we were looking at, I'll kind of give you a bare bones rundown, was 2 criminal charges. The first charge was intimidation with an upward enhancement because a force multiplier was used, and then reckless use of a force multiplier with a increase because force multiplier was used in the force multiplier crime. Now, I'll take you back to the start of hunting season 2022. So we have a couple characters. Their names will be changed just so I don't get sued, because one of the guys seems to have a lot of money and I don't feel like getting sued. Let me get this set up. No. So it's the first day of hunting. All right, let's see if I can. Welcome to the duct tape and holy water production that is Mo's World. So these are the charges, and we're going to focus in on this little property drawing that I've sort of done, and I'll explain it as I go. Well, let's see here. All righty. Okay, so what we have is an entire forested area. There is one landowner that has about 700 acres on his property. Let's see if I can ambigonate. There we go. 700 acres. So all of this land over to here is that other property owner's. Then there was an actual holler in this case. I mean, it could not get any more Midwest. It could not get any more Midwest and hillbilly if you tried. It's the first day of hunting season for white-tailed deer in Indiana on about 2 years ago. So this case has been languishing away for 2 years. This is 2 years that a defendant is having to wait to, his fate. Well, look, I'm not a drawler. I try. In the holler, which is about 100 yards long and 80 yards across, there is a deer stand that's on the other person's property. So our defendant's property starts here and then down to here. Where here his deer stand is. So he is on higher ground over the holler. He tends to hunt for deer right around here. Okay, so, and then he has a pond on his property and a dam or a berm at the end of his pond to kind of clear it out. Now, the big giant property, the owner is trying to make it into a game park or a place. I thought so. I thought I was on many lists, but apparently not. So the owner of the property, the 700 or so acres, is a fairly new owner. And because, he's a fairly new owner and other owners in the past had allowed people to go onto their property and, hunt or fish or do things like that. Well, under the new hands, this guy would like people not to trespass on his land because he is trying to make it I didn't even know these things existed, but a park you can go and hunt deer or animals. I had no idea this existed. But he's been having some problems. This deer stand right here, they put up trail cameras because ever since he's, started updating the property, there's been it's a lake, sort of. You guys, I'm not a drawler. He's had issues with trail cams that he's put up getting knocked down. He ran into or met the state trooper in this case, and yes, there is a state trooper who may have the nickname Superman. and it does come up. Well, his friend, the state trooper, wanted to lease some cattle land from him, and it eventually turned out that he would become also as a side gig, in addition to being a state trooper, the sort of farm manager of this entire property. Now, he decided that on opening hunting season day, he was going to catch him a trespasser. There had been recent activity where someone turned off a trail cam, and it looked like the deer stand in the holler had been used. I swear to God, I heard more about holler yesterday than I ever thought I would hear in a courtroom. So he decides to go all the way from this little like heated barn on his boss's property, takes an electric side by side so he doesn't spook the deer. And this state trooper is not wearing anything to identify himself as either security for the other property or like a state trooper, like a manager, anything, nothing like that. He is simply wearing a black shirt, dark pants, and an orange beanie hat. So he decides to take his electric vehicle all the way down and to that particular or blind, I guess, or stand, blind or stand. It's where you hunt the deer. Now, our defendant is in his own deer stand, seeing some random guy on other property, on the other owner's property, kind of looking suspicious. He was kind of walking around slowly, peering into things, looking at the trail cam. So because he didn't, prior to this, he didn't go over to the rest of his neighbors and say, hey, have you been dealing with, maybe some, oh, crud. No, I want this to be solo. Sorry. What I would think you would do if you are concerned with safety, it is the first day of hunting and you realize that you're going out hunting trespassers, you would talk to your surrounding property owners, because it did come out in testimony that most of the parcels of land that surround this particular property, their owners hunt. So this is in full knowledge that it is the first day of whitetail season. So our defendant, being a bit of a smartass, maybe a good old boy, maybe a little bit less than couth, decides that he is going to fire, according to him. Now, they didn't check this out. They did not investigate, so I don't know if this is true. But he decided to shoot into his berm or his dam on his lake, where he has it built up so that the round won't ricochet or anything. He decides to put one down about 90 degrees away from the state trooper, who has not identified himself as a state trooper, to kind of let him know, like a courtesy, toot, toot, let him know that it's the first day of hunting season and maybe you should be in more visibility thing than just a little beanie cap. I digress, though. So cop falls to the ground, as I'm sure most of us would, because, you hear a freedom seed being unleashed. And then he waits a couple seconds because he assumes that someone has taken down a deer. And he finally says, hey, did you get the deer? And, well, our lovely defendant may not have made life easy on himself, because he said, I'm not hunting deer, I'm hunting dumbasses. Now, this is when Super Troopers, Super Karen came out, because then that is when he decided to say, well, we have a problem now. You've committed 2 felonies and, attempted to unalive a state trooper. And the guy's like, do what now? So at no point during the single shot, when the officer was in fear of his life. And I'm sure it was scary. I am not saying it wasn't scary. And I think once you get more details in the case, you will realize that the state didn't prove its case. Well, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot the scary clown laugh. Let me go back a little bit. So, right as the, fearless Superman trooper is coming up from his crouch, the defendant decides to unleash his best it laugh because apparently, according to the defendant, his speaking voice scares deer, but his it laugh doesn't scare deer. I don't know. This is the case I was giving you guys. I have no idea. Yeah, bless my heart. Look, it's been a couple days. So, the super trooper probably, had a little bit of a prairie dog moment. A little bit of a prairie dog moment, a sharp moment where he's like, oh my God, it is out here and I am going to be, stuck in dairy forever. We all float down here. So he decides to yell up to our defendant in the deer stand and he's like, we have a problem now. I'm a state trooper. Get down here. Now, our, intrepid defendant takes his, buggy down. We heard a lot of buggies. Thank you, Daniel, for the gifted membership. And that went to you. So you gifted you. It's the circle of giving. So the arresting state trooper who was, not working in his state trooper capacity at the moment decided to unarm the man and then drive him to the warmed shop. And as he's driving him to the warm shop, he is recording, but keeping the phone in his pocket, interrogating this man. Like, so why did you try to shoot at me? And the defendant said, well, if you go look, I shot into my berm where I do target practice. Now, the funny thing is about this timeline is that after he's recorded sort of a preliminary interrogation, he is calling his own personal friend, DNR agent, to come investigate. And he is also calling his own captain from the state troopers. So he did not get to dispatch. He did not say, hey, I'm going to need some help. We've got a Yahoo here. He decided to call his personal friend network. Now, this is where the case started going really bad for the state, for me, because I am sorry, but swear to God, had the state trooper not been there, there might have been a different outcome. I am so tired of state troopers thinking that their poo doesn't stink. I have been absolutely irritated with state troopers since the Karen Reed case. Now, apparently, the a-holeness just goes with the rest of the territory, and he was bald. So I'm telling you that the thought that they are above the law, that they can do whatever the hell they want. If they get offended, it's definitely a felony. And again, look, I am not one that is putting on a uniform and going out and risking my life on the freeway. So I get it. But we have not seen the best of state troopers here lately. And this one pissed me off. But I looked at the facts of the case and I did not let my, emotions of pissed offness dictate anything else. What was interesting is that he recorded himself. Again, his phone was in his pocket, so we don't get to see his face. But you could tell he was pissed off, that he got embarrassed. He's, everything was fine until he was called a dumbass. And you can totally tell that he was, pissed the heck off. And even during his witness testimony, he said, I shit you not, this was an actual line from the trial. So he's talking to the state and he's like, I always have my state trooper mind on. Always. I'm Superman. His literal nickname was Superman. I shit you not. I was like, what in the canton am I going through here? And he's like, I always think tactically. I can't turn it off. I've been on, a force for 20 years. I'm always going to be a state trooper no matter what I'm doing. And I'm like, so state trooper of genius, you decided to go stealthily walk around with only a beanie cap. And I know that's the only thing required by law. I do understand that. I was told that by some hunters. But you are stealthily walking through the forest, looking really, really shady on the first day of hunting, when it's snowing outside, when visibility is lessened, and it's everyone else's fault that, you didn't go up to. Again, here's what doesn't make sense to me with the entire trooper thought process. It's going to be the first day of hunting. You have neighboring properties that hunt all the time and do target practice and things like that. So if you were going on a mission to find a trespasser, I would have thought that you would have gone around to the outlying perimeter, properties and asked, hey, have you been having trouble with trespassers? No, okay, and then, hey, I will be out tomorrow. I'll be wearing this, this, and this. If you see me, I am doing actual work. But he did none of that. He didn't identify himself. He didn't, stop anything. His whole demeanor changed when the defendant ill-advisedly called him a dumbass. So when I say that we were in a case because of a deer, some dumbasses, and a scary clown laugh, I am not joking. That was the case that I was on. Now, the charges were intimidation because the state trooper felt in fear of his life and claimed that the defendant shot toward him. The only problem with that is that when we got to the DNR officer's testimony, he never went to see where the bullet landed. So the state cannot have its cake and eat it too. You can't say that he was shot at and then never do, any investigation as to where the bullet landed. And I had this very discussion with someone in the jury room. I said, no, the state did not meet its burden. The state claimed that he intimidated and, possibly threatened his life, but they did not check up where that bullet hole went. Because it was snowing, because there was accumulated snow on the ground, if they had gone to that dam and found a bullet, not to mention the defendant offered to get his own metal detector out to show him where the bullet probably was. Now, the DNR officer also did not look around the, state troopers' deer blind to see if, there was any sort of marks, any sort of, grazes, anything like that. So their investigation was hearsay. It was, well, the officer told me this and the officer reported this to me and I didn't go check where the bullet was. So I was pissed, y'all. I was pissed that this man, now emotionally and not as a juror, I was pissed for this man being, basically dragged through court for 2 years, having to put on retainer a pretty good defense attorney, even though she had resting mo face. It's not our fault. We just can't abide stupid, and our face says so. Sorry. I will tell you, so the only terrible, terrible thing about jury duty is that apparently the elevator in the courthouse where I was is the final destination elevator, and it gets stuck between floors. So my, squirrely behind took the stairs all daggone day and then sat in some uncomfortable chairs. So my leg is not happy. So I have sat down, but now we get through the state trooper's testimony because he is the, for all intents and purposes, victim. I can tell you I didn't like his attitude, but I did write everything down. And I shit you not, he said, when the defense asked him, so you're always in patrol mind or patroller mind? And he's like, Superman can't take off his cape. My notes literally said, The fuck am I listening to? Messiah State Trooper compares himself to Superman. And he said it with a straight face. And I would just like to say, I deserve all the effing, ice cream because I didn't laugh out loud. I didn't even, I didn't even do a mo face. I did not do a mo face. Oh my gosh, you guys. So I was totally geeking out because they had the little tablets and we got to see him draw the line of where he went during the property. The things that thrill me are a little bit weird. But I was like, oh my gosh, they didn't use the Elmo though. I do feel a little cheated. I'm not going to lie. I do feel a little cheated. And all joking aside, if I were walking around during hunting season and I heard a freedom seed going down range and it startled me, I think I would be scared too. But the problem is that our defendant decided to call the wrong person a dumbass. So he's been in, legal hell for 2 years. Now, I do think it worked to his advantage. I will say that we are a fairly rural county. There were a lot of hunters. And what was nice is in our particular jury, we had several experienced hunters. And when I would ask them questions, they were able to clarify things for me because I do feel like had I just had to do it by myself, I wouldn't be familiar with a lot of the customs of hunting because they're like, this dude wanted to get shot because you don't go out with, out really big visibility during the first day of hunting because apparently hunting is usually paired with maybe drinking. I had no idea, but that does make sense if you have to give up at like the ass crack of the morning to go, get winter food. I can understand that, but apparently there are a lot of, let's say, mix of booze and freedom seeds on the first day of hunting. I know you're shocked. Now we've got, so we get through the state trooper's testimony, and I'm already not liking this case. I'm not liking that we're going completely on speculation that I don't have the trajectory of where this supposed bullet, we're supposed to be taking the state trooper's word as gospel. And he's already done some pretty, not unethical things, but just tipping the case into his favor by calling his supervisor as supervising investigator, calling a DNR officer that he has a relationship with to study this or to investigate. So I feel like he was already putting his finger on the scales for basically getting embarrassed. He got scared. He probably sharted because he heard the scary clown laugh. And I am not going to lie, if I was in a forest and I heard a freedom seed downrange and then a really loud, creepy clown laugh, y'all, my soul has left my body and my chubby behind is racing after it. It is one of those smoke things, the smoke ring from the old Acme commercial with Wile E. Coyote. I am out of there. That's just no shame. Now they do. Now, what is interesting is the next particular witness was the property owner. And I thought, now I wanted to remind you guys, in Indiana, the jury is allowed to ask questions. So the property owner went on about all of the issues they were having with the, trail cams, with trespassers, with people not quite understanding that, the property has changed hands. So it, is not going to be permittable anymore to go onto this property. So it was a bit of poor communication. He lives not on this property. He is wanting to build it up to be a game park. So that was one thing that was a little interesting to me and somewhat Machiavellian, but this is just my speculation. So I'm letting you know. Our defendant has about 11 acres. Now, the big parcel of land that this new owner has is somewhat piecemeal. It's not all in one piece. So it did strike me as interesting that uh, you know, these charges were upgraded to felony level because of the deadly weapon enhancement. Both of these crimes were felonies. Now, when we were allowed to go into the jury room and given the instruction that we could talk about the case, but, not deliberate, which again is weird as all get out. Uh, there was some discussion by some of the hunters, like, they've got him for felonies. They're trying to take his Second Amendment right away. And, if you have this parcel of land for hunting, then, these 11 acres that you have now are basically useless. And I had to stop them and I said, okay, guys, wait. I know you guys haven't heard the final instructions, but the jury is not supposed to keep in mind or have any sort of sway about what potential sentences could be. And they all looked at me like, you do watch a lot of trials. And I was like, yes, I do. And one guy who was maybe a little younger than me, but was a big into hunting, he was like, does the trial ever get exciting? And I was like, well, it depends on what you find exciting, but it's not Perry Mason. It's not Law and Order. There's a lot of foundational stuff. There's a lot of, checking chain of custody and different things. It's not always going to be a Perry Mason moment. No one died. The charges was, the first charge was intimidation with an upcharge to a level 6 felony, I believe 6 or 5. Both were 6 or 5. Because of use of a force multiplier in the case. And then the second charge was reckless use of a firearm with a firearm enhancement, which I thought it would be implicit in the name, but there you go. So I just found it interesting that it just happens that this parcel of land and this trooper kind of get really upset. And for 2 years, this man has been, going through legal hell, had to get lawyers, and was very honestly, if it was a different county, I do believe that he could have been found guilty. I believe if there weren't people that were thinking critically and a jury just went with a sort of premise that the state would never, try to convict an innocent man, I think that the case could go very, very differently in a different county. So we get done with the property owner. The property owner has never met the defendant before this day. Now, he was asked by one of the jury, like, what was the state trooper's specific sort of job? No, they didn't. So we get all through that, and people ask. So one of the jurors asked, so what did you actually give the state trooper authorization to do? And he said, well, I wanted him to check that day. I wanted him to check on the trail cams. This particular blind seems to be being used by someone, and I want you to keep an eye on it. And, well, I don't know. So the next witness was the DNR officer who, again, before dispatch called him to go out there, he got a personal phone call from his very special state trooper friend to come investigate this quick, right quick and in a hurry, because there were 2 felonies committed in the presence of a state trooper. So I almost rolled my eyes. I swear to you, the lawyer with resting mo face was like, and when the Superman line came, she was like you could tell inwardly that she was dying of cringe. So I loved her resting mo face. I was trying to be poker face mo, which is terribly difficult for me. So all of my stupid and smarmy thoughts just ended up in my 15 pages of notes, which they destroyed and wouldn't let me keep. I call shenanigans. Anywho, the DNR officer comes up and he is all of 13 years old. I don't even think the boy shaves yet, okay? He had very sweet eyebrows though. He got that real cool arch, and I was just like, good eyebrows are wasted on men. Give those to me. I mean, just beautifully done. I think they were naturally done. I don't think he deals with, he was an avid hunter. He did kind of explain what the DNR does, what their training is, things like that. So they did, lay foundation. And my only jury question was like, are you allowed to drink? Do they let you sit in the booster seat? He may have been, yeah. Mostly. True story. So what was interesting is that he was handpicked by this particular state trooper to do the investigation. Now, this DNR officer does have prior experience, or did have prior experience, being a regular police officer. So it's not like he was on his second day of the job. And he does have, a lot of knowledge about hunting. And I guess he teaches a hunting safety class, which I live in Indiana. I don't think anyone takes those. I mean, once hunting season starts, it is not, man mistaken for deer shot by friend. These are not headlines that are unlikely in Indiana during hunting season, if you catch my drift. But on his recording, it was very interesting. He made the statement to say, yeah, this time you did it to a state trooper, because the defendant was like, I'm sorry, I was trying to get him to pay attention because it is the first day of deer season. He's walking around like a yahoo. I don't know who this person is. He didn't introduce me to him, himself to me when he took over this property management, position. I didn't know who he was. We have a lot of trespassers here. It is the first day of hunting season and people like to poach on this property. So he is explaining all this in a recording that, yes, again, is still in his pocket. We don't have body cams apparently in Indiana. I digress. He said, well, I don't think you're going to go to prison today. So again, this undermines the state's case, because if that state trooper truly in his heart felt that this man was a, threat to him and not a threat to his ego, he would have been detained and in prison. So there's a strike for the state's case that I wrote down. Because again, if this man is an existential threat, if he is as bad as you say, try to unalive, this state trooper, but you didn't find out where the casing went, nor did you check trajectory or anything. You just went on what the state trooper said. This is not a case. This case should never have been brought. There was no evidence, even though the state's attorney was like, all the circumstantial evidence is there. Everything is there. You just need to vote him guilty. In his closing statements, he's like, and I'm just sitting there thinking, what evidence other than the force multiplier and the spent shell casing have you shown me? I'm just supposed to YOLO believe the state trooper and it'll be fine. So the DNR officer did make the statement, I'm sorry, but this time you screwed around with a state trooper and things are going to happen because of that, or something to that effect. Basically, like, I'm sorry, luck of the draw, but you terrified a state trooper, so now you're going to pay, basically, is what the gist of the situation was. So they take away his force multiplier and the spent casings, but decided not to go see where any of the spent casing went, or the bullet actually went. That was not part of his investigation. We got to see real cool pictures of the duck blinds and the burlap thing and everything like that. So that's about where the state rests its case. So we've heard from the state trooper, we've heard from the property owner, and we've heard from the DNR agent. Now, the defense has been making really good points, because the defense attorney, her husband, used to be a state trooper. She was part of, she called herself a range mommy. And y'all, I don't know what that is, but I need to become one by the end of my life. Oh, yeah, great success. I did this story this morning. It was actually very beautiful. And, again, I said it this morning, but if you are going through a dark time, don't make a permanent choice. Reach out to someone. There are so many people out there that when you are in the dark, they are holding lights and, they will get you through that really dark time. So please don't make a permanent choice. Please reach out if you are struggling. It's not easy, but do. So we get another break, and I think the jurors were a bit disgruntled because it's about 1 or 2 p.m. by the time the state rests. And then the defense is going to go on. And they're like, oh gosh, how long is this going to take? And I said, probably not very long. And they were asking, why am I in here? And I said, well, look, you can take this with a grain of salt. I watch a lot of trials, but essentially what is going on is if he is going to testify, the judge is going to remind him that he does not have to testify, that he has the right to remain silent and it will not be used against him. He has the right to, talk to his attorneys and really understand what's going on in the case before he does this. So I just said the judge basically has to ask them or ask this witness, the defendant, if he understands, what might happen if he does speak, and that if he doesn't, we will be instructed that we can't hold it against him. But this man so he kind of had some tells. He would do kind of this when he was really, really nervous and clench his jaw. And I really tried my very best, as much as humanly possible, to keep a poker face because I didn't want either side. Again, as much as I'm joking about stuff, I realized that I held the fate of this man's future in my hands and I wanted to do my very best job, which is why I took 15 pages of notes, because I cannot pay attention unless I am writing things down. And this trial was boring the snot out of me because it was basically a trooper got his feelings hurt. So we get to this gentleman, and this gentleman is just a good old country boy, just a good old country. He's like, yeah, I like to shoot down in the holler because I've got a berm behind me and, you don't get strays. I like to set up over here. People that know me know I have always hunted over in this particular area. It was, if I had a camera, I would have taken a picture of it because that thing was haunted. Okay. That thing was thing. That's what it looked like, the Thing when it mutates from a dog into like a spider globular creature. That's what it looked like. It did not look, it looked like only the vaguest sort of idea of what a dog looks like. Now, as much as I'm throwing out shade on that person, we've seen my drawings, so I have no room to throw stones whatsoever. So we get to this gentleman's testimony, and he basically says, look, I know it was disrespectful. I shouldn't have been a smartass, but the man worried me because he looked like he didn't have a freaking clue that it was the start of deer season. And, I'm trying to get his attention. So first, I mean, not the greatest idea, but I decide to, swivel my chair in my duck blind and shoot into my own little shooting range, to get his attention, to say, hey, dumbass, people are shooting here. This is the first day of hunting season. Watch your six, pay attention. Now, if the officer was really afraid for his life, this would be the point where you would say, the hell are you doing? Why are you shooting? I'm here. But he didn't. He stayed in that crouch. And then our defendant, again, made maybe not the best life choice. He decided to pull out his it cackle that he learned doing, I think, Haunted Horse Trail or Haunted Hell House, Indiana, or something, like one of the more large haunted houses. Apparently, he worked as a haunted house person for several years. And the grand irony in all of this is that our defendant runs basically a body shop for Morgan County, municipal purpose or people services. So he is always fixing up cop cars and everything else. So here is the great irony. Now, this is what he testified to. I do not know it. Deer don't like me. But he claimed, and he did have sort of a deeper, raspier voice. And I never did get to hear him cackle. I think we should have, in hindsight, yeah. In hindsight, one of us jurors should have asked to do his cackle, but we heard a facsimile of the cackle from Super Trooper guy. And to be honest, this case was a farce, so I didn't want to ask him to cackle. But we basically go all through it, and he says, "Yeah, I didn't, fire at him. I followed all directions when asked. Yeah, I might have been a smartass, but it pissed me off that it was the first day of hunting and we've got a dumbass walking around, doesn't look like he's paying attention." Now, not being a hunter, I did not realize how almost sacred the first day of whitetail hunting is, because I guess people will take like time off of work. They will be out there at 3 in the morning sitting in a duck blind, which I guess I understand why you would need liquor, because not my jam. So I can understand this is a very big and important thing. But he basically said, "Look, I've had people come onto my property, take animals, poach animals. This guy basically did not announce himself as a state trooper, only announced himself as a state trooper after he uttered the famous line of, 'I'm not hunting deer, I'm hunting dumbasses.'" Now, the state took that as an implication of a threat that he was going to unalive the state trooper. In full lolly mode, he's like, "He did it. He said it. He said it. He said it." It gave off that vibe. It gave off that Karen Reed, in a state of hysteria or maybe smartassedness. Uh, it, really, really, really kind of bothered him. And you can tell on the recording that this man was simply upset, that he was embarrassed. He got scared. He wasn't, situationally aware. And he looked like a dumbass. When I tell you that this case is about deer, dumbasses, and a clown cackle, 2024 could not have picked a better case for me. It's clown world all over the place. Now, after he gets done with his testimony, with the state trying to point out that he has had 2 years to basically come up with this better story, although his story did not deviate in any way from what we heard recorded from the DNR officer. So the officer had a recording, and basically plain as day, the defendant told him the same story that he told us on the stand. So then the defense rested, and the state came up and tried to convince all of us that every single point had been met, that there was, great, so a holler. A holler is not a canyon, but all right. If you were looking at a side view, that's a holler. So you have kind of a depression with steep grading on each side. And also, I don't know who needs to, but I will continue to sing the praises of this chalk. If you, your friend, if you're someone that works with chalkboards a lot, Agarolo chalk is actually a very good thing with your, basically your hands. You can see it really well, and it's just a great chalk. Oh, right. So in this particular holler, The depression is about 80 feet. Now, this is the other thing that the state didn't really bring up, but the defense, uh, the defendant was up on top of the holler and he was shooting down into it to make sure, again, practice hunting safety, make sure that any strays that maybe don't catch a deer would go into the berm on the other side. So it, I believe, used to be the run-in for local creeks to make his pond, but he did dam it up. So now it's, just a sort of holler, just like a little dip in the land. They tend to just be all over the place here. So I can't really, but it's just a little dip in the land. It usually has, kind of steep sides, and it's not easy to get in and out of if you're going down. What else was I going to say? I've lost my point. And then 80% of this holler was the client or the defendant's, land to hunt on. So again, it just does seem a little suspicious that you have these you have this property owner that's wanting to turn all of this acreage into a premier game park. You have a very rich hunting ground or hunting area next to water that this property owner doesn't own. But, should some trumped up charges come up, so should, maybe he lose the ability to exercise his Second Amendment, he might want to sell those 11 acres. Now, that is just my purely speculative idea. There's in no way was hinted to in the trial. This is Mo Tin Hattery. This is in no way was there any evidence. This is just Mo speculation. But it does seem rather interesting that they kept this case alive for 2 years for basically embarrassing a state trooper. So we get to closing arguments, but before that, we are in the jury room for about 45 minutes as the lawyers, we had 21 juror instructions for basically a 6-hour case. I kid you not. It took about 15 minutes to read through all of them. And then we went back to start officially deliberating. Now, the state was convinced that, Trooper said he did it, guilty. And it was really astonishing to see the state, again, try to make hearsay, try to make, conjecture, and the fact that they never found the bullet or even went to look to see where the, bullet had struck. It was very, very interesting that even that basic cursory level of investigation was not done, and that this was taken for 2 years. So we, get told by the juror, we get all through the instructions and everything else, and I'm like, thank God we're not going to have to come in another day, because Juror Mo would have been big, hot, pissed off if they had spent so much time on the jury instructions, because it's about 6:00 now. And I am thinking, I swear to God, if they send us home and make me come back another daggone day, I am going to lose my ever-living mind. But we got it figured out. We got the instructions. We get in, and everyone is looking at my dumb ass as being the, head juror. The head juror. And I'm like, no, this is a bad idea. Because I thought I was going to have to read the verdict, and I was like, that'll be a hell no. That would be a hell no. But as per every school project, when you demonstrate not only intelligence, but an overeager, copious note-taking and ability to verbalize your stuff or your ideas, you get picked to do extra work. So we had no sooner got in there than I said, okay, guys, if you want me to be the premier jury or juror, because Foreman is apparently sexist, I was going to go with tits in chief, because again, or, her rackness. But apparently you don't get to pick your own title when you are, the foreperson. But I'm just going to call myself the foreperson because, you know, facilitating juror just sounds stupid to me. I am not offended. Man is gender neutral. So I was the foreman. So I get the verdict documents, and I am thinking to myself, do not fucking sign the wrong one. Read these all carefully several times and do not write anything on the wrong flippin' sheet. Because I did not expect to be foreperson at all. I don't know why I was picked other than the fact that I spent most of the time explaining what was going on in the jury room and talking about trials and weird ones. But, basically we sat down and I said, "You guys, I want to read the elements of the crime, and then we'll do, a hand vote or just a preliminary vote. Then we can discuss things. I don't want anyone to feel like they're left out. I don't want anyone to feel like they're talked over. So let's just do that." And, immediately so I ran through all of the, points and all of the elements that had to be met for the first charge, which was intimidation. Unfortunately, the intimidation, for it to have been a guilty charge, it is a state of mind crime. And you know what the state did not prove? The state did not prove that the defendant, regardless of where he shot, intended to scare, harass, or make this state trooper act outside of his self-interest. They didn't prove that because they didn't prove. Again, you might not like that he said, "I'm hunting dumbasses," but that is the reason this man was brought into court. And it's really kind of gross, if you ask me. And again, these are my opinions, so they were not the entire jury opinion. These are my opinions. But this was definitely a David versus Goliath thing. This was a man with a small bit of property who decided to solve things redneck style. Do I think that you should, send a freedom seed downrange, to warn people that you're hunting? No, probably not. Probably not. But there are things that they didn't prove. Again, for it to be a state of mind crime, I need to know that this man intended to terrify the other guy. Now, when he paired it with a clown laugh, the creepy clown laugh, which, again, on the stand, he stated that deer are afraid of his voice, but the clown laugh seems to have very little effect on the deer. And he still wanted to, bag a deer, I guess. So we did a preliminary, just informal vote, and everyone was for not guilty. And I looked each of them in the eye and I said, "You may be polled about your decision after we give the verdicts. Is this something that you all feel comfortable standing in court and saying, I agree with this verdict, because I want to make sure before we go out there that, we all agree, and this is something that we're going to stand with." And everyone agreed. So I signed the correct verdict forms, you guys. Can I tell you, I was a whole lot Twitter-pated that I was going to do it wrong. But then we went to the next charge, the reckless handling of a force multiplier with an upgrade that he recklessly handled a force multiplier. The problem with that, again, is they never told us where the bullet came from. And I had a kind of, not an argumentative, but just a different opinion, kind of, because one of the women said, "Well, he did shoot." And I said, "Yes, and if they could prove that he recklessly shot towards a person, we could convict him." But the fact that they did not, do any investigation to see where that bullet went means that we don't have any proof. We have the we have Super Trooper, Farva telling us that he definitely felt. Yes, I was made the jury foreperson. I was made the jury foreperson around, so I didn't get home until 7:30 last night. I was made the foreperson at about 6:20. We deliberated for, I believe, 10 or 15 minutes. Now, I will say that our deliberations were very, very swift, but as I've said several times, and it didn't make sense to me, and I even checked up on it, we were allowed to discuss the case, but not deliberate, but discuss different portions of the case all throughout the day when we would go on breaks. And it was interesting, but it was so we almost deliberated throughout the entire day, even though we didn't call it that. I mean, it wasn't that we said, this is what we thought, but we would discuss different parts of the case and what was compelling for us versus what maybe were things that we didn't quite understand or things like that. We did actually, everyone on the jury did a great job. We really did try to, you know, they didn't serve pizza, but we did get cookies, Pringles and crackers. And the bailiff was really sweet. She always made coffee. She made a fresh pot of coffee for those of people that like coffee and always had water around. So they did try their very best to be kind and give us, everything we needed. So it was funny because basically the bailiff, we had about maybe 15 minutes. The bailiff said, okay, call me on this phone whenever you guys are ready. So I have now an hysterical, anxiety filled, like triple type A form. I have unclipped, paper clipped, reclipped these verdict forms, at least 5 times, just making sure I have all of them, so I don't look like a dumbass. Let's be honest, there are enough dumbasses in this case. I didn't want to look like a dumbass. I had already wasted an entire day of my life basically listening to a state trooper get pissed off that he had, a scary experience. I was done. I was so done. So we get back out there, and you guys, I tried not to get emotional because, again, we are, I tried to do a poker face. I don't know how well I succeed because, let's be honest, I have resting mo face too, which means I am unable to deal with stupid without, you know. So I hand over the verdict forms and, they go up to the judge, which thank fuck. And I'm sorry for cursing, but I was like, thank fuck. I was like, tiny baby Jesus, I love you. I'm not going to have to read in front of court. Because I was like, please, Lord. That was my only objection to being foreperson. I was like, please, Lord, don't make me have to read this verdict form. Because I was going to tear up. Because, y'all, it honestly was David versus Goliath. I mean, imagine all these cases that are brought because someone felt offended that was, in a position of power. I mean, this guy basically lost 2 years of his life, had to pay through the ass, I'm sure, for good, competent lawyers to, pick good old boys and, those of us who want to tell the government to go F off. To this jury, because it could have easily, I mean, the state made it very easy if you didn't want to use your thinky bits to convict this man. If you simply did not want to do your job, you wanted to get in there and out of there and not had to, do any thinking, and you just listen to the state, he basically said they had it all wrapped up with a bow. And I can only imagine the absolute fear and terror that has to be in there when the state is basically telling the jury, yeah, we have it all wrapped up in a bow. All you have to do is vote our way and you're done and justice is served. They didn't. I wish there was one for like, okay, maybe don't be a sarcastic jerk face. Like, look, I get it. I have instant sarcasm syndrome. I do. I suffer. I suffer instant sarcasm syndrome. I know I do. Like when I hear something stupid, in addition to resting mo face, I have, explosive sarcasm that just comes out. So I get it. I get that he made a comment that I didn't personally think was stupid. I'm like, why are you wandering around on hunting day, uh, not talking to the other property owners? It irritated me because none of this had to happen. Had Super Trooper gone to the neighboring properties and said, "Look, this is what I'm going to be wearing. I may look shady, but I am trying to catch, a trespasser. This has been a big problem. We've got trail cams that are going missing or being turned off. We are not sure who is on our property, and that worries us, especially with hunting coming out." Again, all of this could have been avoided. I'm not a hunter. I have never hunted in my life, although I may take, this defendant up on his, like, "Come up to my holler, you can see my deer stand." I might, take him up on going to see a deer stand. I'm joking. I didn't talk to him after the trial. But, you could see how this could totally. No, he did not talk to the other, property owners, and this is what was terrifying to me, is the exception to the rule was that a, fellow neighboring property owner would not hunt. So he went out on the busiest hunting day in, you know, in poor visibility, because it was snowing apparently, with only an orange hat to indicate that he was, not a robbler, if you use my youngest terminology. So he only had this orange hat on, which I did learn today was the minimum legal thing that you have to do for hunting. I also didn't know that apparently hunter harassment is a crime. So it seems like, according to the defense, and I did not know about hunter harassment. It did seem that the state trooper also didn't engage until the man made a smart ass comment, because I guess in Indiana it is illegal to harass hunters during hunting season. I did not know this wasn't a pastime that people engaged in, like pissing off hunters. Because for there to be a law, I'm sure there was an incident of people harassing hunters. Y'all, I don't know. It is not my ballywick. This is not my, ball of yarn. I don't understand it quite that much. But it seems that, in Indiana, if you are considered to be harassing or depriving a hunter of his kill, it can be a crime. I had no idea. But it so I'm handing over these verdict forms, and we have all unanimously agreed that the gentleman was not guilty. Now, I have tried to present you guys the facts of the case with my own special twist as much as I can, to the best of my ability. I understand that I do have a bias. I really did not like this state trooper's attitude, but I went through point by point and let other people talk and kind of gave my feelings and asked if it was, if the rest of the jury was feeling similar things. And we all agreed. We went through it was a quick 10 minutes, but at this point, we had been going over the case for almost 6 hours. And, everyone had said their piece. So we went out there, and I'm not tearing up. It's smoky in here. But to see this weight lift off this man's shoulders. And of course, the judge admonished us to, not make any outbursts, not do anything crazy when the verdict was read. But you guys, to see this guy's face, with all this worry, all this, what is going to go on with my future, to see that lifted after the state has put him through this for 2 years. And I'll be honest with you, if they had found the casing, If they had found the casing near the state trooper, then the verdict would have been a lot different. Had they done any investigation and said, no, he didn't actually hit the dam, he hit, very close to the tree. I guess that's the part that I wanted to get across, that as much as I joke, as much as, uh, this was an interesting experience with a lot of absurdity, this is still a man who's had 2 years of his life basically going through court, getting fingerprinted. They did not even detain him that day, but he did get a summons to criminal court. So this man was going up against state troopers, a DNR officer, and a pretty good attorney. I'm not going to lie; the DAs were very good at explaining things. They were personable. There was not, a bad guy unless you kind of take the super trooper. But this was an ego trip that went into an actual criminal case that could have deprived him of his basic freedoms. And I think that really hit me. It really did. And I wanted to stay to talk to the lawyers. But by this time, my leg was just on fire, like on fire. And I just wanted to be able to do the stairs, still do the stairs because I didn't want to get caught in Final Destination elevator. So I did not stay back to talk to the lawyers, honestly, because I thought also I might cry. And I don't like crying in front of people. And I think the defense attorney would have gotten it. I really think the defense attorney would have understood my emotion, but I don't like making, as much as my hair and everything else, I don't like making a spectacle of myself emotionally in front of other people. So I left, and it was just a really cool experience. So yeah, is jury duty fun all the time? No. It was a lot of boring. I was hit with severe naptosis about 3 p.m. I had to continue to take notes to stay awake. I am not gonna lie. Some of the foundational stuff was uber boring, but at least I didn't get, lit up by a force multiplier when they showed us the rifle, because I was waiting for it. I really was. I was waiting for every single witness to try to light us up with this particular weapon, because I have seen trials before. They didn't even take the daggone thing out of the box. It was zip tied to the damn box. I hope this man gets his hunting rifle back. I really do. But I will say, if given the opportunity, yeah, it's not the funnest way to spend the day unless you're an uber nerd like me. But I really felt the weight and importance of what I was doing, not in a self-aggrandizing way, but definitely I held the future. I mean, all 12 of us, 13 of us, if you add the alternate, held the future of this man, in our hands. And I wish people, instead of saying, how can you get out of jury duty? We need good jurors. We need jurors that aren't just going to listen to the state say, well, this trooper says this, so believe us, YOLO. We need people that really understand the gravity of this and want to do their best. And I'm almost to the point where I would like to have a Baker system. You guys know that the broken Baker is like a lay juror. I would be willing to volunteer for something like that, as long as I got to pick land boat captain cases and sovereign citizens. Like, put me on every trial. I am there with bells on and maybe a different wig on, but don't worry about it. Like, I am there. But it was very interesting to be in a real courtroom. You can tell that nerves are a thing. He definitely looked like there was a lot of weight lifted off his shoulders. Now I tried not to look at them. I really didn't, because I didn't want, again, this is this was important to me, and I didn't want to be disrespectful to the court. And I know my face, to be very honest with you. I am very aware of my resting Mo face. So I was trying to be very stoic and not look at him, but I did tear up a little bit. I am not going to lie. Because again, you had a man facing down the entire state government because basically he called a state trooper a dumbass. Now, should he have maybe done a warning shot into the berm? Probably not. He probably should just hollered out. But it's deer season, and I did not realize how sacred the first day of deer season was. So it really was interesting to see every person on the jury kind of give their own wisdom, give their own personal background, because we had a lot of people that you know, understood a lot more about hunting and were willing to share that with the rest of us. So it was kind of like being in chat where people know all these different disparate facts, and it can kind of help you figure things out. Uh, well, thank you. I'm so glad. So what I will say as I end this up, if you are selected for jury duty, I know it's not great. I'm not going to play you the Troy McClure, jury duty. You know what? We will end on Troy McClure because I think this guy is just, what in the hell is going on here? Let's see if we can get some of his more cheesy moments. We'll end with a little bit more from Troy McClure.
Final jury deliberations. More about evidence in a moment. But for now, let's introduce you to the bailiff. The bailiff is the only communication link between you and the court and can address your personal private needs throughout the case.
This bailiff looks like he's about ready to, he's like, I'm gonna need John Bon Jovi if I don't get out of this video. JKD Buck, I'm gonna embiggen myself for 1 second. Now, I want you to look at this t-shirt. I am an indoor cat. I have no idea what the hell you're supposed to wear when you go, mushroom hunting. I know people do that, but I don't like mushrooms. Like, I'm not a vegetable person. We know this. I have the palate of a 4-year-old who only eats hot dogs and chicken nuggets with ranch. I'm working on it, but mushrooms are still gross. I'm sorry. Just yuck. Look, and I know this is blasphemy to say in Indiana because I know we have the morel mushroom or morel mushroom hunters. So I know that this is blasphemy. I fully accept that this is total blasphemy for me to say, like, I just hate mushrooms. But I'm not a vegetable person. Now, the funny thing is I like them if they're pureed to add depth for like stews and things. But if I catch a mushroom, no. He really does. Look, we scoured the best acting troops in Indiana, and this is what we got.
Need a pad of paper to take notes? Ask the bailiff. Have any questions about courtroom procedures?
Write the question down and give it to the bailiff, who will deliver it to the judge.
Most likely, there will be others in the courtroom as well. There will be a court reporter recording the proceedings. You might even have an audience in the back of the courtroom. But with these main players in place and you and your fellow jurors seated in the jury box, the trial will be ready to begin. The judge will start by reading some preliminary instructions to you and the other jurors. Then the attorneys will typically present you with opening statements that will give you an overview of the case.
Now, I am gonna, when this gets to a side profile, these two particular lawyer actors have the same male pattern baldness. It's hilarious.
Following the opening statements, evidence will be presented. This can be either the testimony of witnesses or the presentation of physical exhibits. Each side has the right to examine or ask questions
They have the same
and
baldness
cross-examine the evidence as it is being presented.
It's like going into law just makes you super bald.
You may not realize this, but you even have the right to ask questions as each witness concludes his or her testimony. Now, this isn't the time.
Now, that is true. So in the state of Indiana, and we were able to ask the witnesses questions. We didn't ask a whole lot. Again, this wasn't a giant case, and for that, I'm actually glad. But we were able to ask questions and, kind of get a little bit more information. And then, the judge would look at it. Yeah, sorry guys. This is like Dark Crystal, only worse because it's not David Bowie.
Time for you to jump up and shout, "Where were you on the night of August 12th?" Real courtroom procedures don't work that way. Any questions from the jury can be submitted to the judge for consideration. The judge for your trial will instruct you as to the proper procedures for submitting your questions to the court. As a juror, you are allowed to discuss the evidence with your fellow jurors
Ooh.
in the jury room during recesses if all jurors and alternates are present.
Yeah, see, that was the part that really got me because I have never in my life heard this. It's always been wait till, you are sent to deliberate. You are not allowed to talk to the other jurors about this case. So getting this was absolutely honest audio coffee between 3 to 4. I think there was a disturbance in the space-time continuum because it liked to never get to 4. I was writing note after note trying to stay awake because I was suffering severe naptosis. I needed a nap bad. I'm not going to lie. I was about to get some coffee, and I hate coffee. But it was really interesting to be given this particular instruction because I think that it really cut down on deliberation time simply for the fact that we were able to kind of analyze each witness, what we thought about that particular witness and what he said and the evidence. Right at that time, we had a present, impression and it was fresh. So we had kind of not been deliberating in deliberation terms, but definitely going through and saying, did this person, add anything as far as giving us any of the elements that we need? It just was a weird thing.
In participating in these discussions, you should keep an open mind and not make a decision about the outcome of the case until you participate in final deliberations. Pay close attention to all evidence introduced during the trial. The presentation of evidence and the laws presented by the judge are the
Troy McClure, how dare you? I have a chalkboard. You don't get to steal a chalkboard. I look professional, damn you.
only things you can consider during your jury deliberations, along with your own common sense, of course. Remember that the lawyer's arguments cannot be considered as evidence in your deliberations. Only the answers witnesses provide during the trial and the introduction of physical exhibits allowed by.
So right at this point of the video, I wanted to say, hi, my name is Chris Hansen. Why don't you take a seat? I don't know why it gave me those vibes, but I was internally giggling to myself, trying to maintain, proper composure, but I was about dying in my soul because I was like, hi, my name is Chris Hansen. Why don't you take a seat? So I see you have some Subway there. Do you have anything you were wanting to do this evening? And y'all, on a tangent note, but why the hell is it always creepos go to Subway? I mean, is it a Jared link? I don't know.
By the judge are to be considered evidence. One final word about evidence. While the court appreciates your willingness and enthusiasm to serve, you are not permitted to strike out on your own and play detective to seek out additional evidence and information about the case. You must not rush out to a crime scene or attempt to talk to a witness.
Now, this does confuse me because did the people of Canton not watch, did the jury in Canton not watch their own infotainment, to let them know that they weren't supposed to go to the waterfall to see if you could get 7 drinks?
In addition, you must not read, watch, or listen to any media, communication, or electronic sources that might present information about the trial. You must not communicate about the case with anyone until this case is over, including posts, blogs.
Are there still chat rooms, you guys? I know Discord is a sort of chat room, but like just chat rooms, are those still a thing? Because I don't even know anymore. I also love, this is a state-of-the-art 1996 computer right here. I mean, look at the size of that monitor. We are high tech in Indiana. Let me tell you what. Tell you what. I'm not going to make fun of the, actual people from Indiana, except to say, I know. I was like, oh, you know what, JKD Buck? My thoughts about that is that I have this jar full of F's to give, and I'm not opening it for Jared from Subway.
Here you are in the jury room. Throughout the trial, you've not been allowed to talk to lawyers, family, or friends who might influence your decision. You sat quietly and listened intently throughout the entire trial. Now in the jury room, it's your turn to let your voice be heard. You and your fellow jurors must now come to a unanimous decision. It's a very important and sometimes challenging task. You'll want to remain fair and impartial at all times, just as fair and impartial as you would want to.
The director is like, look deeply into the camera with those Manson lamps at a semi-Kubrick angle. Again, this is an angle that Kubrick made famous because it makes you feel deeply uncomfortable. It's a very furtive look. But he's like, I am Walter Cronkite. Just the direction in this, I have no idea.
Juror to be if you were involved in a trial. So, where do you begin? Well, there are no set rules for conducting jury deliberations. One thing you'll want to do is select a foreperson. The foreperson presides over the deliberations as well.
See, and since we've changed it from foreman to foreperson to premier juror, I wanted to be called Tits in Chief, Rack of Justice. But apparently I cannot make my own title up. I was very pissed off because I find nothing offensive about foreman. Again, man has been used to indicate human for, since literary time began. So I really don't care. I can understand that, some people find it mighty upsetting that you would use foreman, which is why I wanted to be really offensive and do like Tits of Justice. But apparently you can't make up your own name, because I did ask the bailiff and she's like, nah.
The person completes the final verdict form and signs it before the jury returns to court. Let's say, for example, that you are the foreperson today.
I did play the foreperson.
You and your fellow jurors have just heard testimony from witnesses and seen physical exhibits pertaining to your case.
Yes.
You'll now collectively...
Okay, you guys, that's it. This is a bit of housekeeping, so I'll try to put this up. And it is a tangent engaged, so bear with me. I know where I have great talents, but I know where I maybe struggle with some things. So if anyone, because Justice Jugs does sound awesome, and it definitely probably needs to be a merch thing, there are a couple things that I'm planning to do to work on the channel as an aside, housekeeping stuff. So I do plan this weekend to really work on getting a Discord set up so that I have a place for you guys to send me weird Reddit things and stories rather than TikTok. But I also will be working on a merch store and kind of growing and talking to other creators, which is not my strong suit. So if you guys if you happen to be in a chat and it's a subject that maybe I've talked about, and feel free, you have my free blessing to, talk about me, to bring me up, obviously with respect to the fact that it's another person's chat and I don't want to be obnoxious or anything like that. But if you think there's creators that I should talk to, or, maybe are on a same subject of mine that I'm looking at, feel free to put that out there. I am not demanding a hype person. I don't, but if you find someone, it's not my strong suit. I am trying to reach out to more creators, but it is definitely not my strong suit. And I'm trying not to be so full of pride that I walk up and down stairs and really hurt my leg today. Because I'm a hardhead dumbass. I mean, every one of us is a dumbass in their own special way. And that's what Mo learned in trial. JKD Buck is it's a single entendre. You know, I specialize in those. Yes, I need to get back with her. I will say that this, getting back to school time has given me a lot more time, so I am really trying to focus on growing and making this a better channel for you guys, and I do know where I struggle is in sort of self-promotion, so and, keeping up with, you know, all the creators that are out there, and I mean no disrespect, but when you do become a creator, you have, um, infinitely less time to keep up with new creators or different ones. Oh, yes, yes. I did see something about that and her possibly getting a retrial, uh, but I need to look into it more. I'll probably pull that story, and then I need to see how getting information on English, or UK, trials work. I don't know if I have to fill out a FOIA there or how one goes about getting information about the case, because I think Lucy let be getting, possibly another thing or another trial is very interesting. Slinky sounds like a plan. I will do that right now, and thank you for the super chats. Oh, Slinky says, for $5, please add Rack of Justice to your YouTube screen title name thingy, and will and can and will do. Slinky, give me 1 second, and I will put that up there. Okay, it should be up there. Huh. 1 second. I am forgetting everything because, you know, that's just how I roll. Let's be real. I mean, we do seem to have general issues as per usual. It should be on there, but I can't here. Yeah, it's not showing my headline. I don't know. Oh, well, thank you, Heidi. No, it's more that I definitely know that there are things that are outside my comfort zone, but I want to grow and really make a shot at this being more than a semi-professional hobby. And I definitely want to, oh, okay, so it's Victoria, or Victorina Chow. That's an interesting name. Oh no. Well, have a good sleep. Be safe on the roads, and thank you for what you and all most truckers do. Uh, you know, keeping our roads safe, really looking out for those of us, and having to deal with jackasses who drive like trucks can stop on a dime. So get some sleep so you can be safe. All right, let's finish up this video of cringelarity.
Weigh the importance of that evidence by openly discussing your opinions and observations. You'll want to make sure that each juror has an opportunity to discuss his or her views openly, and that everyone is patient and tolerant of each other's thoughts and observations.
What I did was I asked discussion of every individual relative to what they thought or what their opinion was, and we had an open discussion.
As I went to the room with the other jurors, you know, I got to know the different people over there, and then I started feeling more comfortable.
Everybody, I think, there had one common goal. It was to make the right decision. We knew it wasn't a plaything. It was a very important issue to us, and we wanted to make the right decision.
I'll fix that last.
Once you reach a unanimous decision, the foreperson will complete the verdict form and sign it, then notify the bailiff, who will return you to the courtroom with your fellow jurors. The judge will then read this verdict in court. Once you are dismissed, That's it. You have no obligation to discuss the case with anyone unless you choose to do so. Well,
And as y'all can see, I choose to do so. I chose to do so. As much as I tried to make this entertaining, and it really was an interesting case, I do want to put out there, give jury duty a try. I understand that it's not the funnest thing to do, and it's a heavy weight. You are, literally determining the future of another person. But if people like us, if people that, feel passionately about the justice system being the justice system we were taught about in school, then more of us have to step up and not try to get out of jury duty, but actually sit there and do our civic duty. Yes, it was not fun. My leg is on fire, and it was most of the day. But I knew I had a job to do. I knew that it was important, and it was something that I took seriously. So if in any small part my live stream or story time can, convince more people to try jury duty and really try to make a difference, listen to both sides, take in the evidence. I'm not telling you to go stick it to the state or, get those defense attorneys that never tell the truth. I am making this entreaty on no sides other than be the juror that you would want to have if you were the one on the defense table. And, give it a chance. Do your civic duty. I mean, yes, I sacrificed a day of my life. And I'm glad it wasn't a longer trial because those chairs were not very friendly, but they were good chairs. It just, my leg hates everything. It is what it is. But really give it a shot. And, I can't sit here and talk a big game about how I want the justice system to change and how I want it to be better and how I want juries to be better if I don't take on that responsibility. Because there's one thing I hate, we're all a little hypocritical in every area, but when it's something I'm passionate about, I didn't want to. I will try. Actually, that means I have to go get children, people. So I am going to cut myself off here because I will tangent if I don't get out of here. But thank you guys for listening. I should probably have nightly newsy news, but it might not happen tonight just because yesterday was a lot on my leg. It is nice that I do have the stamina and I don't, I can control my limp and work on the stairs yesterday, but I am paying for it today, so there will probably not be nightly newsy news tonight, but we will have regular mornings with Mo tomorrow. We will have probably Reddit day tomorrow since we didn't do Reddit today. So if you have Reddit, am I the butthole, all these things, you can DM me on Twitter at Mo in the Deep, or I think it's Mo in the Deep 84. Send me those weird Reddit things. Am I the a-hole? And we will just do a Mo Answers It All tomorrow after Mornings with Mo. So I will see you guys in the morning. Thank you so much for listening to me, and really give it a thought if you get jury duty. It's not terrible. And, it really is important. I mean, you definitely do have someone's life in your hands. And I wish more people would step up to the plate and, instead of talking about jury or justice reform, actually do their part that they can do right now. Anywhoozle, because maybe you'll get a case about a clown laugh, a deer, and some dumbasses. I'll see you guys in a little bit. Have a wonderful evening and safe rest of your day. Bye, guys.